Welcome back, my financially conflicted disciples. Today, I'm attempting something no guru would ever dare. I'm living on $50 for an entire week. No magic hacks, no coupon sorcery, no manifesting abundance, just raw discipline and the occasional existential crisis in the grocery aisle. Will I survive? Will my bank account finally stop crying? Let's begin the prophecy. What if I told you that I just survived an entire week on $50 and somehow didn't end up eating ramen noodles for every single meal? Actually, scratch that, because I definitely did eat ramen noodles, but not in the way you think. This is the story of how I challenged myself to live on an impossibly tight budget for 7 days and discovered some shocking truths about money that completely changed how I think about spending. So here's what happened. 3 weeks ago, I was scrolling through my bank account, feeling pretty confident about my financial situation, when I noticed something terrifying. I had been spending almost $200 per week on random stuff without even realizing it. Coffee here, takeout there, a random impulse purchase on Amazon, and suddenly my money was disappearing faster than my motivation on Monday morning. That's when I decided to do something completely insane and challenge myself to live on just $50 for an entire week. Now, before you think I'm some kind of masochist, let me explain the rules I set for myself. The $50 had to cover everything: food, transportation, entertainment, and any unexpected expenses that came up. I wasn't allowed to use anything I already had in my pantry because that would be cheating, and I wanted this to be as realistic as possible for someone starting from scratch. The only exception was basic utilities and rent, since those are fixed costs that don't really change whether you're being frugal or not. Day one started with a harsh reality check when I walked into the grocery store with my crisp $50 bill, feeling like I was about to embark on some kind of survival mission. I had done some research beforehand and created what I thought was a brilliant meal plan based on cheap staples like rice, beans, pasta, and eggs. But standing there in the produce section, I realized that even the most basic ingredients were going to stretch my budget to its absolute limit. My first major decision was choosing between buying fresh vegetables or having enough money left for protein. This sounds dramatic, but when you only have $50, this kind of choice becomes genuinely stressful. I ended up buying a bag of frozen mixed vegetables for $3, a dozen eggs for $2.50, and a big bag of rice for $4. Already I was down almost 20% of my budget, and I hadn't even left the produce section. The checkout experience was honestly humbling in a way I wasn't prepared for. Watching the cashier scan each item while I mentally calculated whether I had enough money left felt like playing some twisted version of financial Russian roulette. When the total came to $47.38, I actually felt relieved, even though I had literally $2.62 left for the rest of the week. Walking home with my groceries, I started to understand something profound about the psychology of scarcity. When you have unlimited money, or at least what feels like unlimited money, every purchase is just a minor decision. But when every dollar counts, suddenly you become hyper-aware of the true cost of everything. That coffee I usually buy without thinking twice suddenly felt like a luxury I couldn't afford. Day 2 brought my first real crisis, when I realized I had forgotten to factor in transportation costs. I needed to get to work, but taking the bus would cost me $2.50 each way, which would completely destroy my remaining budget. This forced me to walk 45 minutes each direction, which honestly wasn't the worst thing in the world, but definitely made me appreciate how much we take convenient transportation for granted. The walking actually became one of the unexpected benefits of this challenge. Not only did I save money, but I got exercise and had time to think about things without the constant distractions of modern life. It's amazing how much mental clarity you can gain when you're not constantly reaching for your wallet or phone. By day 3, I had fallen into a rhythm that was actually kind of satisfying. Breakfast was scrambled eggs with some of those frozen vegetables. Lunch was rice with more vegetables and whatever protein I could scrape together. Dinner was usually some combination of the same ingredients prepared in a different way. It sounds boring, and honestly, it kind of was. But there was something liberating about having such simple choices. The real test came on day 4, when my friends invited me out for dinner. This is where the social cost of extreme budgeting really hit home. I had to explain that I was doing this challenge and couldn't afford to go out, which led to some awkward conversations about money that I usually avoid. Some friends were supportive and suggested cheaper alternatives, while others seemed genuinely confused about why I would voluntarily put myself through this. This experience taught me something important about how our social lives are built around spending money. Almost every social activity we do involves some kind of financial cost, whether it's going out to eat, seeing a movie, or even just grabbing coffee. When you can't participate in these activities, you start to feel isolated in ways you don't expect. Day 5 was when I hit my lowest point, both financially and emotionally. I was down to my last dollar and had to get creative about stretching my remaining food. This is when I discovered that ramen noodles aren't just cheap food for broke college students. They're actually a legitimate survival tool when used correctly. Instead of eating them as a complete meal, I used them as a base and added eggs, vegetables, and whatever else I had lying around to create something that was actually pretty nutritious and filling. The weekend brought different challenges because I had more time to think about all the things I couldn't do. Saturday morning, I usually go to my favorite coffee shop and spend an hour reading while drinking an overpriced latte. Instead, I made instant coffee at home and read a book I already owned. It wasn't the same experience, but it served the same basic purpose and cost me absolutely nothing. By day 7, I was feeling a weird combination of pride and exhaustion. I had successfully completed the challenge, but I was definitely ready to return to normal life. The final tally was $49.15, which meant I had technically come in under budget with 85 cents to spare. Looking back on this experience 3 weeks later, I can honestly say it changed my relationship with money in ways I didn't expect. The most important lesson wasn't about extreme budgeting or how to survive on $50 a week. Instead, it was about understanding the difference between wants and needs, and recognizing how much money I was wasting on things that didn't actually improve my life. I'm not saying everyone should live on $50 a week, because that's obviously not sustainable or realistic for most people. But I do think there's value in occasionally challenging yourself to live with less than you're comfortable with. It forces you to be creative, resourceful, and mindful about your spending in ways that can benefit you long after the challenge is over. The biggest surprise was discovering how much happiness and satisfaction I could find in simple things when I wasn't constantly looking for the next purchase to make me feel better. Sometimes the best way to appreciate what you have is to temporarily live without it. If this video opened your eyes to what's possible with your money, then don't stop here. Tap the video on your screen and I'll walk you through it step by step.